and welcome back to another Strange Normal episode. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things, but this isn't the normal episode that we have every Thursday night. This is an off-channel episode that we have every now and then that might stay on the channel and might not. And tonight we're going to hang out with you guys. We're going to talk a little bit, and we're going to hear a story. This story is a fascinating story that I came across this last weekend, and I think you guys will be amazed by it. I'm going to go ahead and leave the comments up here if you guys remain tame. Go ahead and completely fine with putting comments up here. I don't mind at all. And I want to get your reactions to what's going on here because it's fascinating, really fascinating. So we got this guy named John D'Souza. His name was... He's a former FBI agent, and he was in the FBI for 25 years, but I'm going to take away from his story because he's going to tell his story in a second. But he was the guy that got involved with creating the first episodes of The X-Files. And I didn't know this, but apparently, according to him, the first episodes of The X-Files are actually from his original documents that were unsolved. And so how did he get involved with this? Why did the government pick him to investigate these strange things? Well, he's going to tell that story of these strange events that happened right now. Let's dig into it.
So your time at the FBI, you were there for 25 years. You were involved in some of these cases. How did you start to get involved in some of these paranormal cases at the FBI?
Oh, that's because... Originally, I was in the FBI from 1988 until 2013. That's up 25 years. Wow. And when I originally went in, I actually went through the academy. And one of the things that happened at the academy was that I ran into a couple of people that had worked this case. This case in the FBI that was very, very, very famous, especially back in the 80s. It was the case of Maddox and Platt. They were they appeared to be just a couple of hillbillies who had been running around robbing banks throughout Miami and Florida. And they appeared to be normal people. However, what we found out later was that they were very, very special in some sense because the FBI, an entire FBI task force cornered them and had a huge shootout with them because, of course, they wouldn't surrender. And they had a giant shootout with them and they had to drop on them. So the entire task force, both FBI agents and police officers, they shot them to pieces, both of them. However, instead of falling down and dying, they actually got their weapons and decided to trudge through this parking lot. It was like a parking lot of one of the banks. It was a parking lot that they found at random, and they forced them into there because they were in a bunch of cars. And then Maddox and Platt just got their weapons and started marching through the parking lot in a semicircle and killing the FBI agents and shooting the police officers. At that point, they just did, and it was called the Miami Massacre. The Miami Massacre, also the Great Miami Shootout, it was also called.
So what does this have to do? Let's look in this right now. What does this have to do with the paranormal?
And they shot all of them. They got all of them, and it was unbelievable what they did.
So what does this have to do? This is interesting because what they did, the FBI filled them through bullet holes, and they kept walking. They kept walking, and it turned out to be a terrible, terrible incident for the FBI. And it changed a lot of laws and the way they had weapons. The FBI had weapons, and because these individuals, I don't think he goes into this part of it, but I dug a little more research on it. These individuals were military trained. And so they were trained to assault and go straight into the problem. Whereas the police at that time, there was no SWAT. This was just the regular FBI. They were trained to do defensive stuff. Don't really take any lives, but just try to defend themselves. And so it changed a lot of things at the FBI at this point. But what was really fascinating about this is that these individuals were not only able to do all this stuff while being filled with lead, essentially, but they were also what they found at the crime scene led him to believe this is a lot more than the physical. Let's continue on with the story.
Because one of them was even shot through the aorta at the time, and they should have been dead, and they just marched through, and then they got in their car and they were leaving. They were leaving after they shot all the FBI agents and all the officers, and they were leaving. Then we had one hero FBI agent who had his arm shattered by Maddox and Platt, but he used his other hand, and he actually was able to shoot both of them, and he shot them, shoot both of them through the car as they were leaving, and he was able to shoot them through the neck and sever their spinal cords, and that's how they finally died. So anyway, after that happened, it was a huge scandal. It was a huge scandal. Like how were these guys able to do what they did? This was unbelievable. And so the FBI scientists stepped forward and said, oh no, they were probably loaded up on angel dust. PCP was very popular at the time. So they said when people are loaded up on this angel dust, they're able to perform superhuman feats, and they're able to blah, blah, so forth. Well, the blood test came back and showed that they had nothing in their system except a couple of cigarettes that they had smoked just before. They didn't even drink beer before they actually did this deed. And so it was a great mystery, and they were told to search for hard drugs in anywhere that they could find it, because people were looking for this explanation at the time, and there was a lot of political pressure on this situation to explain a couple of dead and maimed FBI agents, several of them in this case, and so those deputies were able to tell me that the only thing they found at this place was they found a little altar that was a pagan sort of Norse god altar, and it appeared that these two individuals had, at that time, they did some kind of sacrifice to some evil spirits from the Norse mythology. There was something to do with berserker spirits, and so I told them, I said, that's it. That's how they did what they did. They did some kind of sacrifice, and these whatever it was, the god of mischief that they did these sacrifices to, I think it was called Loki, and to the berserker spirits, and they were given these berserker spirits, whatever they are. They were given that in order to accomplish what they did, and that's what they did. They had a complete dedication on a spiritual level that inhabited them, came to them, and helped them to do these extraordinary feats that they did. Anyway, at that point, what happened was the person in charge of the FBI Academy found out I was questioning people about this, and found out that I was finding this out. He then designated me as possibly being a New York Times reporter or something of that sort, and so that very much upset them. He told me he tried to make sure that I didn't graduate the FBI Academy. However, I did. I did because I knew everything he was going to do against me. I was able to graduate the FBI Academy, but then he gave me my credentials, much against his will, and he. When I went to my first office, he said he actually contacted them and told them, hey, this guy likes to do paranormal cases, paranormal investigations. Let's, anything you've got, anything you hear of, let's load him up with that crap and see how he enjoys that. Let's do that. And my first office said, okay. And that's when they handed me several of those cases that I talked to you about earlier. And that's how I got started with paranormal.
Wow. So he goes on to talk about how all the cases that he worked on after that, after he got out of the FBI Academy, were the cases that eventually made it into the first episodes of the X-Files. because these are the cases that the FBI couldn't actually figure out. And so they just kind of packaged them up and put them away somewhere so that they couldn't, so that they could have someone else work on them. Sounds similar story to how Lou Elizondo got a hold of some of these strange events at the Pentagon. A lot of these things are unknown. Hey, we got a job to do. I'm still getting paid. We still got cases coming in. Package that up. Let's put it somewhere else. We don't have time for that. Let's just get this thing rolling, and we'll have someone else look at this later. I'm sure there's an explanation for it. We just don't have time right now. And when you don't look through the lens of the Bible, you don't come up with the right answers. And this story reminds me of a lot of Samson. So what's happening here? And we'll talk about Samson in a second, because what's happening here is that you have these spirits. And Samson was given his physical strength by God, but follow me with the parallel here. These spirits were given these guys supernatural strength. In fact, I believe they habited them when they did these ceremonies, and when they went out and did this stuff, just like we learned from Beware of Angels, Marjorie Murnau's book. They believed they could rob banks and not get caught by doing it. But and if you listen to the guy's story, the whole episode is fascinating. It's from a podcast called Redacted. Former Fox News anchors decided to go rogue and start their own YouTube channel. It's an interesting channel. They don't have everything right, but he has people on here every once in a while that are just fascinating to listen to, and it doesn't ever get spiritual. So it's interesting that the Souza, this guy who's talking, this former FBI agent, gets on there and starts talking spiritual on this news YouTube channel. And so it's definitely, I'm definitely going to have clips from it from probably on the next Thursday's show, because then he starts talking about UFOs, and he starts talking about where these lights are in the sky and what the government really believes about it. And what's interesting is he says he has evidence to say that this is a well-known occurrence that's going to be manifested in the future, and the government knows about it. I don't like to get into too much government conspiracy because it makes my witness look funny, but I believe that we are on the midst of things that we don't even realize is going to happen. And I think a lot of people don't, a lot of conspiracies that we thought might be true might turn out to be true. So let's just keep it at that for now. But it's interesting to grab the hard facts, pull them out, and say, okay, this is what official sources are saying right now. This is what former FBI agents are saying. This is what former CIA agents are saying. This is what former Pentagon officials are saying. What is going on here? And so that's kind of what this channel is about. So what's happening in his story? What I believe is happening is these spirits entered these guys, and they allowed them to continue movement, continue possession, even though they were riddled with lead. Even, he said, one that went right through the guy's aorta. I mean, these guys were continuing life without the ability to physically continue life, at least for the moment, until they were shot through the spinal cord. So that tells me something. That's fascinating to me. And we can speculate about this all day, but something in the back of my head says, it's Satan that wants your brain. This is where possession happens, the brain. If the brain is severed, all he can do is just move you as a puppet. But possession happens in the brain. This is a battle for the mind. And so we got to make sure we cover every avenue of the heart. And the heart, by the heart, I mean the mind itself. And so it's further evidence to me showing that something else spiritual is happening here. We know for a fact that this absolutely is going to be a spiritual battle. We battle not against flesh and blood, but the powers and principalities of darkness. And we have proof of that in the Bible, because things physically don't always have to be the only thing that's happening here. What happened to Samson? Let's read it together. So I am in Judges 13. And it said here, and God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again, and she said she was sitting in the field, but Manoah and her husband was not with her. Then the woman ran in haste and told her husband, saying, "Look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared." So Manoah arose and followed his wife. And when he came to the man, he said, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" He said, "I am." So this is an angel coming. Manoah said, "Let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rules of life and his work?" So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I say to the woman, let her be careful, that she may eat anything that she may not eat anything that comes from the vine, nor may she drink wine of similar drink, or eat anything unclean. All that I have commanded her, let her observe." Manoah said that the angel of the Lord said, "Please let us detain you, and we will prepare a young goat for you." And the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Though you detain me, I will not eat your food. But if you offer the burnt offering, you must offer it to the Lord." For Manoah did not know he was an angel of the Lord. Interesting. Let me pause right there for a second. It's fascinating to me that when angels come, they either come and it's obvious they're an angel, or like in Judges here, when they came to Manoah, it wasn't obvious. They looked like just a regular man. A man. Interesting. Because whenever Satan's angels come, I'm sure they could come as whatever, but they always like to take sides, and they come as Mother Earth or feminine. Don't know why that is, but I think there's a side that is being portrayed here. I'm not saying there's one gender better than the other. It's just interesting to me. So also, remember when they appeared to Joshua. Joshua didn't know that this was an angel. They just thought it was another warrior that had come. "Are you for them, or are you for us?" Didn't know if he was an angel or not. So let's read on. So Manoah took the young goat with the grain offering and offered it up the rock to the Lord. And he did a wondrous thing while Manoah and his wife looked on. It happened as the flame went up towards the heaven of the altar that the angel of the Lord ascended and in the flame of the altar. And Manoah and his wife said they fell on their faces into the ground. When the angel of the Lord appeared no more to Manoah and his wife, and Manoah knew that he was an angel, he was the angel of the Lord. So the story goes on and it explains that, hey, this man is not supposed to cut his hair, and he will have strength from the Lord. So that was Samson, and everyone knows the story of Samson. And he did some wondrous and he did some terrible things with his strength. So much so that at the end of his life, he ended up destroying a lot of his enemies, including himself. But he is still seen as one of God's faithful servants, because at the end he kept his faith. And that's what we all must do. We all must keep our faith no matter what. And always, always live according to what the Lord says. It's a fascinating story, but it also proves to me that this life is not just simple physical. This is a very much a spiritual world that we live in. And when you don't go by those answers, you won't find it. So it's interesting, isn't it, friends? That's the end of the thoughts I had today. You know what? I'm just kind of experimenting with going live more often. And as I find things that pertain to the Bible, stories that are things here and there, I thought I'd share them with you. Let me look at the comments. I see them coming in, but I'm not reading them because I'm focused on what I'm presenting here. And I appreciate each and every one of you talking. Strange normal Bible study. Yeah, it's kind of a strange normal Bible study here. And we have 36 tonight. We haven't been streaming that long. Usually we get up to about 60, but we are quite late for a stream, at least in the USA. And so who knows? Who do I see here tonight? Chris, I see the regulars, MC, Leah. Hi, wow. There's a lot of people here I recognize. Good to see y'all. And let's see. And I'm sounding better. Thank you very much. I'm getting better. My voice is getting better. I don't cough as much anymore. Where are y'all from tonight? I want to see where everyone's from. I see Shelby's in Hawaii. Hey, I haven't seen Shelby for very much. Well, good to see you. I guess it's not as late in Hawaii as it is here. I used to live out there in Oahu. in Hawaii Kai and in downtown for a little while. Beautiful place on Oahu. And Sugar Puffs in Georgia. Let's see, Leah. Let's see, Ash. There's a guy on YouTube saying Jesus appeared to him, and as a child, his name is Prophet Lovey. You can see the podcast he's in when he talks about how, by searching Vlad, I don't know how to say that last name. Interesting. Well, there's going to be, I mean, that's just prophesied, Ash. There's going to be people who claim they're prophets, and who knows? But I think that's interesting. Rosie is in Atlanta, Georgia. Hi, Rosie. And McKean, how do you say it? Let's call you Miss Ramos from Fresno, California, Michigan, Tennessee, New York, Vermont, Montana, Ohio, Cosby, Michigan. Fantastic. Good old Southern California. All right. What's going on? I'm so confused. Hold up at MC. There can only be one MC. Is there two MCs here? Oh, there is two MCs. They got they got different icons though. Who is the real MC? Very good. Very, very, very good. And if you guys are just joining us, I see that the concurrent users has jumped up from 30 to 40. Yeah. This is a fascinating study we just went through. Just kind of a little before we go to bed worship. It wasn't really a worship you want to think about before you go to bed, because I'm sure it's going to give you nightmares now. You can thank Strange Normal for that. But it's interesting to think about this world is not necessarily just physical. That's why we need to be closer and closer to God every day. And because truly, one day we will have to rely wholly and fully on him, just as we already should be. So I just want to leave you guys with that. I'm not leaving yet, but I think it's a fascinating 45 minutes from Chattanooga, Joy. That's awesome. You're you're like my neighbor. That's neat. And lots going on. Liverpool, England, Ash. Man, that's quite over the pond, isn't it? I've been to England. I went to England once. Beautiful place. I went down the tube, mind the gap. I know all that. And it's a quite an amazing place. Went to Big Ben. I think that's in England. And it's been 30 years, but 20 years, 25 years. It's been a while. Let's see, who else is here? Ministry people need to know the truth. Absolutely. Yeah, send them the truth. So we're going to actually be talking more about this guy in the coming probably Thursday. We're going to have a little more of his clips here and there. If you're part of the Discord, which you can easily be a part of that by going to patreon.com/strangenormal, you can partner with us, and you can view it right now. You can view that clip right now, because the whole thing is posted in there, and there's much more juicy content, fascinating stuff that's happening right now. So be sure to check that out. We've also have post-show content on Patreon that is always, I mean, last time with Joe Jordan, we had about an hour's worth of post-show that we went over. We went over Nephilim quite a bit, really deep stuff. It was really fascinating. I've been thinking about chopping that clip out and posting it on the channel, at least what Joe Jordan said, and kind of digging further into that. Tennessee is the last basin of freedom left I've seen. The Tennessee Hills, the Great Smoky Mountains. This is where I grew up. You know, I came full circle. So I went from born in Florida, Tennessee, went to Hawaii to do a startup company, back to California to do some education, ended up staying there, running a ministry called Amazing Facts. And then I'm back out here to Tennessee to visit and be with my family again after I got married. So it's good to be back. So I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but close, it feels like. Across the country and back. Tennessee definitely is a fun place to be, though. And it's a good place. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Please do read the interview. And I am City Guy saying this. Joe Jordan is a friend of our family. Oh, good. Yeah, he's a good guy. And I actually got a call from him tonight, and we talked about something that I can't tell you about, but it's really, really fun. And we'll be interviewing a friend of ours that we've already interviewed once about his book, and he's got some fascinating information in there that I think will surprise a lot of people. It's going to be good. So keep tuned in, keep those ears on, because there's a lot happening right here, right now. A lot of Sasquatch, a lot of demonic activity. Yeah, well, wherever people want to see something, the devil's there to make it happen. And so people think they're chasing Sasquatch, but it's funny because I think Sasquatch is chasing them, and at least that's what our friend Lee Arnay has taught us in previous episodes of Strange Normal in the testimonies. Her testimony is fascinating. Her and her husband have been on here living their testimony because they were speakers for Sasquatch a long time. Not for him, but for these conventions that they had. But that would be strange, huh? Another strange episode. Lots happening still. And so seek only the truth, because God is coming soon. Anybody else have anything they want to add tonight before we end it with prayer? Because this is it's a good episode, and I honestly, it wasn't supposed to be long. We just something I thought I'd share with the rest of the crew, and then we'd close it for the night, because it is 11:40 on the East Coast, and it's good. It's good to hang out, have fun, just kind of see what's going on tonight. Have you come to Australia, Brad? I was referring to Joe Jordan interview you were going to edit and post on YouTube. Thought I posted Joe Jordan. I might have not. Did I not post? I think I posted him on YouTube already. At least I try to post all the Joe Jordan stuff I have, except for the stuff that I have specifically labeled for Patreon, because Joe always has some fascinating things to say, and he's a Christian, and he knows what's going on with this UFO activity and how it's spiritual, it's not physical, and although it can become physical, and so that's part of the great deception, I believe. Look up missing 411. Okay, I thought 411 was a number that people dial to find people or something or something to that effect. Hopefully you and Greg from Bible Flockbox can do a video once the internet's fixed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Greg and I have been talking. That was another thing I wanted to talk about. Every YouTuber, it seems, has, I mean, come on. We have to interact, especially if you're within my church. I mean, come on. We got a number of YouTubers that have been on YouTube, and we need to collaborate. And Greg's ready to do that, but he's out there in the sticks right now, and so he can't do anything live. So everything he does is uploaded, and so we're doing a lot of stuff. And we need to absolutely be talking more. In fact, I've reached out to this guy that we saw tonight, this former FBI agent. He has a YouTube channel too, and hopefully we can get him on to talk about the spiritual stuff, because he seems open to it and willing to talk about the more spiritual things, spiritual aspects of it. Anyway, I hope so. It seems to me that every time people want to talk to us about the spiritual stuff, people shy away and run away because their job or whatever, maybe it's too spiritual for them. Who knows? Give us a hint. Yeah. So if you have stuff on 411, or if you have things that you want to talk about, I'm going to put my email address in the chat here at protonmail.com, and you can email me at that email right about, it's going to come on the screen here at any time now, or there it is, Brad Burnham at protonmail.com. That's where I collect and store all this strange emails that I get. And you got to email me. Email me what you got and what you needs to be talked about on here, because we're not always going to talk about UFOs, but we're going to talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life, just primarily to increase your faith and show that there is a spiritual realm and it's alive and kicking, and you have to have that close connection with Christ. So if that's you and you want to be closer to Christ, I invite you to spend more time in the Bible, spend more time learning about Him. Read the Gospels. Just start. You don't have to start in Genesis. Just start in the Gospels, and read into your heart's content. You know, the first way when I first read the Bible was I put earbuds in my ears and listened to the audio Bible, and put the Bible on a table in a Starbucks, and I just sat there and read it all day long. I had a lot more time on my hands than I do now, but you just got to sit there with a highlighter and go, oh yeah, I've heard that verse before. Oh yeah, I've heard that verse before, and just highlight and think about what it's saying, and that's the best way. Another good way to do it is every morning, get your audio Bible, put it in your car. If you have it on your phone, Bluetooth it to your stereo, or however you do it. I used to use a little cassette tapes from those in the 90s and 80s, and I used to stick it in the car and plug it into my phone, and I would just run it the whole time while I was driving. You got to do it. You got to know that book. You have to know that book, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. If you don't know that book, what are you going to do? You're going to get to heaven, and God's going to say thank you, and you're going to say thank you, God, for what? You didn't even read my book. I gave you the manual to life, and you didn't read it. It was all in story form. It wasn't an instruction book, like a boring instruction book, but it's a fascinating book, and it's all flows together from many different authors. You got to read it. Everyone's talking about 411. Well, living word of life, absolutely. Fascinating. Very good. I love everyone's commentary. Thank you so much for being here. What is 119:130? Are you hacking the Matrix? What is going on here? Why are you giving random numbers in the chat? Let's see. Maybe I missed part of the conversation. I don't know. There's also a neat book. I think, there's also Miss Ramos told us that there's a neat commentary on the Bible called The Desire of Ages. You can find it all over on Amazon. The Desire of Ages talks about Christ. And it is amazing devotional book. It goes through the life of Christ and gives you some incredible understanding that is very biblical and straight from the Bible. And The Desire of Ages is the starter book in a series of 5, but it's a really good book that you should read. I recommend, and the author recommends starting in The Desire of Ages because it's a fascinating book. The Desire of Ages. You're going to see it on many different covers when you look it up on Amazon, but every single time you look at that book, it's so deep, and it covers so much more than just a regular Bible commentary. Really, really neat insights in that book. We've distracted into CERN and the Hadron Collider. All right. We're going down all kinds of rabbit holes tonight. The chat is anyway. But it's good to see you guys in the chat. Ash, just want to see Brad's take on it. On what? Man, I have been not watching the chat. I've been going off on my own tangents here. Leah, what did you said before? I can't see what you said about CERN. Okay, that's probably what you're talking about. Boy, I think this deserves a whole episode for Strange Normal. Talking about CERN, that's a whole episode. I try to stay. Here's my take on everything, and this is kind of what you can guess. When I look at all these different conspiracies, I say, okay, what do we know as fact? What are people saying that are a first account of these things? If I can get the scientist's account, a former scientist's account, or somebody that is involved in this, their take on it, their video response, then I write that down, I put it in the box, and I put it in the back of my head. Because even them, you can't know for sure what they're saying is true, but it does add a little bit of legitimacy to it. So I try not to dig too deep into things unless I can get a first person view on it. Then I say something's going on here, something we need to look at, and we need to dig deep into it, because it only hurts the witness if you start guessing. And that's I don't think we need to guess too far, because we have for CERN, we have a lot of scientists that have a lots of money that are trying to find the God particle, and they're looking in the opposite direction. It's so funny to me, because no matter what they're doing, if they're trying to do what you've heard the conspiracies do, or if you've if they're just completely barking up the wrong tree, man, that's a lot of money to spend barking up the wrong tree. Maybe one day they'll come across something, but I believe that if you had the Bible as the foundation, we'd probably even be able to see into the spiritual realm by now, because we would be looking in the right direction. We would be understanding what this other type of physics is that they're calling quantum physics. Do you realize that quantum physics is what the government calls seeing into the paranormal realm? That's what Lou Elizondo and everyone's saying here. All this, these things that go bump in the night, their belief is that they can understand this and take out and understand that physics by looking into quantum physics and making quantum computers that can figure this out. So that's fascinating to me. That's if they were actually on the right trail, at least now, they would be a real danger. In fact, my favorite author says, if we could see into the physical, the spiritual realm, we wouldn't want to. We would be scared to death. I'm paraphrasing, but we wouldn't want to leave our houses, because there is so much going on in the spiritual realm. It is scary, and maybe that's why our eyes are veiled right now. Who knows? But it's fascinating to think that this curtain is going to be dropped someday, and we're not going to have to fear it at all. And we don't have to fear it now, because Christ is our Savior. He is our safety, and soon, and very soon, we will see that King coming in the clouds, and we won't need to worry ever again. What else are we saying tonight? What else is going on? But we'll dive into CERN, definitely, but dive into CERN a little bit later. It's a fascinating topic. Well, we got to end somewhere. We have 8 minutes until midnight, and I do have to wake up and get out of bed someday. So there is lots to do, and there's lots to think about. So thanks for hanging out with me tonight. It's been real fun to sit and chat and see what's going on. And I think that's it for tonight. So guys, I love you. Let's have a little prayer. Father God, thank you so much for giving us time to share you, to think about the truth behind all this stuff, to understand your method to this madness we call life that you've made, but we've ruined. Guide us and protect us from these spiritual ideas that Satan wants to crowd our mind with, and help us to focus on you. Help us to focus on the Bible and what the Bible says. We love you, God. Amen. Have a good night, guys.